Okay, welcome back, everyone. At this point, I would love to welcome our live stream audience into the room with us. My name is Joanne Horgan. I am one of the co-trainers for today's Effective Supervision training, and I would like to introduce Lynn Freudlich, my other co-training for Effective Supervision. Thank you, Lynn. So this afternoon, we have been talking about strategies for effective communication in order to build mutually respectful relationships. We talked a little bit about soliciting feedback, sharing information, and now we're going to move into some content around providing feedback to our staff. So let's start. I want to share with you a way of an approach of giving feedback that we call feedback for learning. Feedback for learning is a much more facilitative, conversational approach to talking with your staff and working with your staff to try and help them figure out what it is about their performance that's great and what it is about their performance that can be improved. So why do we do this? Why do we use this particular approach? Obviously, to facilitate their learning. And when you give feedback in a very directive way, so you're telling someone, you need to do this better, you did this well, this is what you need to do differently. It's very one way, and it's very driven by you. Research shows that when the learning happens from the staff person, when they reflect and come to their own realizations, that behavior change is going to be much more significant and much longer lasting. Okay, so that's another reason we do this. Obviously, to improve their performance and to increase the awareness of desired results. This is important too, especially as we're working with our staff on longer-term projects. It can be really easy to kind of get off track along the way, things change, and goals may change, and to be able to have those conversations with them to help them raise the awareness of if they're on the right track, if there are gaps, and how to readjust. Very important. So how do we do this? How do we provide feedback in this way? So we're going to ask a lot of open-ended questions. That is the key to feedback for learning. So you, for example, just saw a staff person facilitate a meeting that you know that they've been planning for months. So you want to talk with them. You have some ideas about it, but you want to find out how it went for them. So you sit down and you say, so tell me about this experience. What are you most proud of coming out of there today? Tell me about that. Tell me what you learned from this experience. So I've heard that you want to do this again every month. What are you going to do differently next time and why? Did you overcome any barriers or challenges as you were planning for this? I know this is the first time you've done something like this. Give them time, space, and broad questions to be able to reflect and come up with their own suggestions for themselves, okay? Ask questions that reflect desired goals and current reality. So in this situation, you may say, what were you hoping to accomplish walking out of there today? And they could say, well, I wanted buy-in from the whole staff, and I wanted an action plan to move forward. So then you may say, so tell me how you know if you got those things. Oh, I got them. Look, I have an action plan. We have all the items, detailed out, deadlines. Oh, my initials next to all of these. Maybe I didn't get the buy-in I was looking for. So you're hopefully just continuing to peel back the layers and ask questions that will help them come to an understanding of what was good and what can be changed. Okay. Now, be generous. Very important, yes, to be positive. So when you think of being generous, you think of being positive. Absolutely. It is just as important to give positive, descriptive feedback and help that person figure out for themselves what they do really well as it is to give constructive feedback. But this also means be generous with your time. Be generous with your focus and your attention. Don't sit down and have these conversations with your staff when you have 10 minutes left in the day and you're running out, or they are. Or when you're waiting for an important call, or you have people coming in and out of your office as you're having this discussion. Really give them the time that they deserve and to be able to reflect in a valuable way. Okay? So that's feedback for learning. I will say that this is a very facilitative approach, right? So those of you who were facilitators in the room earlier this morning, giving feedback in this way is going to come really naturally for you. And you may want to approach every conversation like this. The one thing I will say about that is that when there are significant performance problems that need to be addressed, this probably isn't the best approach to take. So this approach is great when it's a learning moment, when someone has just done something for the first time and you want to debrief it with them. This is really a professional development tool. And you need to be open in asking these questions to being open to different ideas. So you may have an idea about what they did well and what they need to do differently, but listening to their experience, you need to be open to that changing, right? And at the end of them sharing their perceptions of things, you can certainly add yours. You're the supervisor. So that's really interesting to hear you say that. I hadn't thought of that before. I agree with you on this and this. I think this was your strong point. I also, if you don't mind me adding, think that maybe you could try this next time. So it's not that you can't inject any opinion into these conversations, but to let the person come up with their own stuff first is going to leave a much more lasting learning experience for them. Okay? All right. So there are times, though, like I said, with real performance issues or other times, when you need to give directive feedback, right? You need to just tell somebody what they did that needs improvement. So in that case, we want to talk about effective feedback criteria. You have probably seen lists like this in books and trainings and so forth many times. It's really simple and really easy to forget to do them when you're in the moment. So let's just go over them to raise our awareness. The first, we want to be descriptive and specific rather than evaluative and general. And this is so important. And we can think we're being really descriptive, like someone said in the line drawing activity earlier, but the other person doesn't really understand our description all that well. So an example, I look at performance reviews that come in from all of our managers and their staff. And I read one recently, and it was a supervisor who was being evaluated, and they were rated needs improvement on three areas in a row. And one of the areas was communication skills. And the supervisor wrote, not collaborative enough. The other was leadership skills. And the supervisor wrote, not patient enough. And I'm thinking, this is not helpful enough for the person getting this review. What do those things mean? What does he mean I'm not patient enough? What does he mean I'm not collaborative enough? I'm patient. I think I'm very patient. So the key is when you are putting a adjective or a descriptive label on something, on a staff person and their behavior, peel it back to figure out what are the behaviors that lead you to think that person isn't patient. Is it because they come in late for meetings quite often? Is it because they leave meetings early? Is it because they are interrupting people? Is it because they're on their phone a lot during meetings? You know, what are the different things that make you feel like they're not patient? And then address those individual behaviors. If you start conversations with an evaluative adjective, like impatient or rude, you know, I need to talk to you about your rude behavior in that meeting. Boom. People are going to shut down right away. I say people come to conversations with those sliding ice cream windows. I feel like everybody comes with one. Some of us come and our windows are always wide open. Some of us come and they're closed and it takes time to open. When you come with a window, when someone comes with a window and you start with a evaluative adjective to talk to them about, that window closes. So again, focus on the particular behaviors that make you think that. Second, adapted to learning style. We talked a lot about this earlier. Some people love facilitative conversations. Some people really want to be part of the process. They like thinking and reflecting and bantering back and forth about ideas around their own performance. Some people really just want to know, what did I do well? What do I need to do differently? And yes, I'll go do that. They like more directive feedback. It's just a style difference. So when you can, take that into consideration when you're having these conversations. Next, directed toward voluntary behavior. We can't change personality characteristics, right? We talked about being introverted. We can't change that, and nor should we want to. However, when you give someone feedback on it, that can feel really disempowering. We worked with a group years ago, and they were switching from a pretty traditional organization to a very participatory organization. And there was some feedback given by one of the senior staff to a group of the accounting staff that they were too shy to be a productive part of this process. Now, that was so unhelpful, the fact that, giving them feedback on the fact that they were shy. So to approach it, we're really trying to have everyone's voice heard as we think about improving our systems and processes, and we're feeling like there's a big loss because you're not able to participate in the group meetings. Let's talk about another way that might be better for you to participate. Okay. Solicited. We talked about this with the Joe Harry window. Feedback that is solicited is much more apt to be acted on than feedback that is just given. Now, that does not mean that you can mandate that your staff solicit feedback all the time from you and others, although that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But we can model it. Somebody said this earlier. Modeling soliciting feedback with your staff, with your manager, with your coworkers is a great way to start shifting the culture. Focus on impact and not intention. This is really, really important. Often you need to give feedback to someone about the impact that they're having either on the work or on other people. And you know, or you can assume, that it is not their intention to mess up or to tick people off. People come to work in our sector because they want to do good things. They want to make a difference. So for you to be able to share your understanding that they're not ill-intentioned, and at the same time explain the impact that it's having, will be the most effective. Next, well-timed. Obviously, you want to give feedback as close to the time of the occurrence as possible, as long as the person can hear it. So don't do it when they're running out the door at the end of the day to pick up their child from daycare. Don't do it when they are emotionally distraught over what just happened, and now's the time that you chose to talk to them about it. But don't wait too long. Make sure that you recognize that they can't hear it now and plan another time in the near future to have that discussion. And checked for understanding, last but definitely not least. As we talked about earlier, people hear the same words in really different ways. So at the end of these feedback discussions, take the extra few minutes to talk with them about getting on the same page. And I think that you can do it in a way that doesn't sound really, disrespectful, like, okay, repeat back to me what you just heard me say, or whatever it is. What you can do is just say, listen, I have confidence in you that you can make these changes going forward. I am invested in your success. I am here to support you in this. And in order for all of that to happen, we need to make sure that we have a mutual understanding of what's going to happen next. So why don't you share yours with me, and I'll do the same. Follow it up with writing and documentation. That's always another great way to check for understanding. So those are the simple rules to giving effective feedback. And they're, what did somebody say? Simple but not easy? That's what I think of these rules. They're simple but not easy. They're hard to remember in the moment. I tell people, keep this list, just post it on your desk somewhere so that before you have to go into conversations, you can just check and make sure that you're covering at least some of these things in that conversation. And we are going to have a chance to practice some of this right now, but before we do that, I would like to thank our live stream audience for joining us for this segment. And just remind you that this effective supervision training is part of our Better Nonprofit Management series for TSNE MissionWorks. It's presented for and by nonprofit professionals. We will be offering this session 2 more times in this training series, once in February and once in April, with an advanced session in June. And we are also available, Lynn and I, to go to your organizations and customize the training for your supervisory staff. So thank you so much for joining us.